from Hawaii, number 30, Hunkin-Claytor.
What is up, you guys? Hope you guys are enjoying your Thanksgiving. And one of my things that I have yet to do, I'm not going to be issuing some kind of special video saying what I'm thankful for, but this is actually my latest recap video of UH men's basketball because they last played on Monday against HPU, Hawaiʻi Pacific University, the Sharks. They're a Division II school. And fortunately, UH again came out the winners, 88-76. And fortunately, UH did really well. They did not self-destruct at all. And it was certainly nothing like last year where they had 15 triples and they needed them all to turn back Hawaiʻi Pacific University. And their last field goal came with over 8 minutes to go, or around 8 minutes to go in that second half. And this time, it went nothing like that. And I actually thought that this team played pretty well, considering they were down another player in Jalen Myers. Isaiah Kerr sat out for a second straight game because of an ankle injury. But fortunately, team captain Harry Rouhliadeff made his long-awaited return. Going to get into that in a little bit. But first off, guys, remember, subscribe if you think that I'm worth listening to, or if you just want to see some more of my games. I will have another one up in a little bit. But in the meantime, let's get into this. So there's my banner. UH beats HPU again, 13-0. Second half run helped. And this is another thing that I also put on my banner. UH's Division II schools are scrappier. And I don't mean that in a negatory thing. I mean that because through the years, whichever UH team, obviously UH has several schools that play basketball, and UH Manoa is the Division I school. And notoriously, UH Manoa has been able to beat all the Division II schools, but there are times where that could not happen. Of course, in other sports, it's a lot more wide open. Case in point, UH Hilo, and in softball, they were able to, I think they beat us once, and Chaminade even beat UH softball in the fall, their fall classic anyway. But that's a different capacity. But still, there are times where the Division II schools can, once in a while, put in an upset on a Division I squad. Case in point, HPU, about a month ago, turned back Boise State by 1 in what was an exhibition game to them at Boise State. And that was nothing short of a big accomplishment, because if that was any other game and Boise State was really up to par, Boise State would have won that one going away. But obviously, this is why you line them up, put them on the court, and play a full 40 minutes. Just like with motocross, line them up, drop the gate. You never know if this particular guy is going to win every single race, even though he has the ability to do so. Just like in 2010 Supercross, when a lot of us thought that James Stewart was going to repeat as Supercross champ. Instead, he wins the first round, has a lousy second round, and leaves with a season's worth of probation and collides mid-flight with the rider. And that pretty much ruined his season. He dropped out a couple rounds later. Because you just never know. There's always that chance that UH Manoa could fall to Hilo or Chaminade or HPU, and there have been some chances, or some occasions rather, where that could very well have happened. But notoriously, UH Manoa has been able to win by 20 or 30 against the D2 schools and kind of made this a little bit of a snooze fest. But in the last few years, that hasn't been the case. The last one I can remember was probably 2022, when UH beat HPU by 30 or 32 points. And then even in another D2 school, they went up against Hilo, and Hilo came here, and UH ended up winning by 30 on that one. However, a couple nights later, Hilo puts an upset on Northern Colorado and turns them back. However, that was kind of a bit of a double-edged sword because Northern Colorado had already been declared the Outrigger Rainbow Classic champion before they even tipped off. Now, what we got here is another example of Hawaiʻi Pacific proving that they could come away the winners, and they almost did last year. This year, they could have, because they started to press the Rainbow Warriors, and it was enough to kind of make them self-destruct in a way, but not significant enough to where they were making mistakes every single time they had the ball. Fortunately, it was nothing like what I was thinking it might have turned out to be. I thought it might have been a 2-point win for the Bows, but instead, it turned out to be a 12-point win because UH started out scoring the first 12 points of the game, and then HPU started clawing back, and then they made it a game. They even took the lead early in the second half, but fortunately, UH went on that 13-0 run and was able to keep a double-digit gap for most of the rest of the way. Now, what did help is that Harry Rouhliadeff had returned after sitting out 2 games because of that hit to the head from another Aussie player against Manhattan. So that was a time where if we didn't have Harry's services, we may very well have won by the skin of our teeth, or we would have lost by the skin of our teeth. But then again, you just never know. And this is the one thing that I have noticed, that their Division II schools have become a lot more competitive with the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And is this a good thing for them? Yes. Is it a bad thing for us? Honestly, I would say it's kind of more or less kind of half and half, really. But still, it kind of goes without saying that the D2 schools do offer a little bit more recruiting, or at least it looks that way anyway, because they were able to get some really good teams. And even against Chaminade in one of the exhibition games, Chaminade looked really good. And had Chaminade defeated UH Manoa, that would have been a confidence booster. But fortunately, Manoa was able to find a way to win, as per the story has gone. When once again, the story has gone, Manoa has still found a way to win, even with the odds kind of stacking against them a little bit more and more and more. But still, if I had to give a grade for that game, I would probably give that game an A-, mainly because they probably could have won by a little more. But obviously, it is basketball and things can go either way. And fortunately, we had a really good scoring night. Harry Rouhliadeff really showed that he has returned. I wasn't expecting much from him, but he did a pretty good job. And in fact, a total of 7 Rainbow Warriors scored double digits. 7 of them, okay? And even with Jalen Myers out, and Jalen Myers is a guy who could put up at least 10 on any given night. So that was a pretty big loss as well for the Bows. But fortunately, we were able to figure out a way to win. And, and you could make a case on this, but if one could say that if Isaiah Kerr and or Jalen Myers were out there, we probably would have won that one going away, because those are 2 guys that could give you a lot of energy. But on a good note, it has also given an opportunity for some of the walk-ons like AJ Economo and Hunter Carter to finally get some time on the court. And we saw them get that. Unfortunately, they haven't. And fortunately, they are starting to learn, and I expect them to get a little bit more court time as the season goes on. But I have to say, though, if there was one guy that I was looking for a better performance from, it was Isaac Finlayson. The guy can shoot well. The guy can play hard. Doesn't cheat you on effort, and nobody does on the team for that, and nobody else does on the team for that matter. But I was looking for Finlayson to really put in at least maybe 5 points. Instead, he didn't even score one. He didn't even score at all. And as a matter of fact, the 7 guys who scored on the University of Hawaii all cracked double digits. So I would call that a pretty balanced effort. And you don't necessarily have to score to really make it a giant impact. And Finlayson, I like to think, did do some things that didn't show on the stat sheet. Same goes for Hunter Carter and AJ Economo. They can give you energy any given night, but are they going to light it up with 15 off the bench? Probably not, but there's always that chance. But still, it is good to see them start to learn how to play on the court and learn the style that Ganat and the coaching staff really preach. And obviously, I do agree that some Bows from back in the day should have gotten a little bit more playing time, but obviously them's the breaks. So obviously, it is good to see those guys get some time, especially with 2 guys on the sidelines. And of course, you got 2 guys down, so somebody's got to step up. And you don't necessarily have to light it up and score 10, 15 points off the bench, especially when it's your first game or really your second or just really still getting your feet wet, so to speak. Fortunately, I do think that those guys are going to come around, Economo, Carter, and to a point, Jalen Myers as well. I'm sure they're going to come around and light it up one night. Are they going to get that chance? Sure hope so. But obviously, when a guy's down, they got to step up. And I like to say that they did. And in fact, I know they did. They don't have to score to really make a giant impact. They can make an impact in their own way. Like I said, I would give that game an A-, mainly because they found a way to win, and they didn't lose their composure at all. And that's the one thing that this team has really gotten much better at, not losing their composure. Like last year, it seemed like once the other team got on a run, that was it. They were kind of defeated. And although they tried to find a way to get back in the game, ultimately they just didn't really have a go-to guy during crunch time. And props to Ryan Rapp for trying to be that guy. This year, they got some guys that you can depend on in crunch time, like Isaac Johnson, Hunter Erickson, and to a point, Gytis Nemeikša as well, and also Dre Bullock. So those guys that I just mentioned are going to be X factors in every win that UH gets. Are they all going to make a significant impact in one win? You like to hope so, but obviously sometimes all you need is just 1 or 2 to really come through with a win. And if it's a breakout performance for them, more power to them. So hopefully we'll keep that momentum. The next time we play is on Black Friday, and they will play against North Dakota. This is a team that I'm probably putting UH as 6-point favorites. They're called the Fighting Hawks, and the last time they were here, they gave us a scare. And this is when Gib Arnold was head coach, and they had like 12 steals in the second half alone, or maybe in the game overall, whereas in contrast, UH didn't have any. Unfortunately, UH is still able to turn them back. So that was a good move on their part. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but we'll see what happens. But I'm still putting UH as 6-point favorites. I don't expect that to be easy. Of course, no team is easy. And as we just saw from HPU, they're a good team. A lot of respect for Jesse Nakanishi and the Sharks. But the one thing that really stood out to me in that win was the fact that we had 3 technical fouls called, 2 on HPU, 1 on UH. And the only guy who got that technical was Aaron Hunkin-Claytor. As for HPU, Maj Dusanich got the technical, and so did Coach Nakanishi, which was unfortunate because that, for them anyway, because at least that second technical anyway, that was the start of UH's 13-0 run that eventually caused them to run away from HPU. So if we can get those kinds of breaks to come our way, we should be able to turn back North Dakota pretty convincingly. But of course, you never know. So that's where I'll leave it. So anyway, guys, that's all for today. And remember, subscribe, go Bows, and we'll see you all after North Dakota. Malama Pona, folks.